We'll continue our series of the demons and the anarthas they represent. We covered the demon of Dhenukasura, Putana, Sakatasura, and Trinavarta. So today we're talking about the Yamal Arjunas trees and what they represent and how we can uproot that anartha. So our acharyas like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Gurudev, they say that the Yamal Arjuna anartha, the twin Arjuna trees that were in front of the courtyard of Nanda Baba, before they were Nalu Kuver and Mani Grieve. They were the two sons of Kuvera, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the Yamal Arjuna trees represent the anartha of pride in one's wealth, high birth, education, and this kind of arrogance leads one to commit offenses towards Vaishnavas or like sinful activities, or one ends up being very shameless and doesn't care about what anyone thinks that they can do anything. You see, there's the danger of having too much wealth. It creates anartha. Pruji says, from artha comes anartha. Artha means wealth. And either from artha you can go two directions. It's important to remember that wealth is not necessarily bad. Right? You can either do good things with it, or you can become like shameless with it and cause trouble to yourself and others. So from artha you can go to anartha, which is like a bad thing in the heart, or you can go to paramartha, engage in something spiritual. But generally it's very difficult to do that. They say generally you have to choose paramartha or artha. You have to choose spiritual life, the spiritual wealth. Paramartha means the param, or the supreme kind of wealth. And if you want the supreme kind of wealth, you have to be ready to give up the mundane material kind of wealth. That's why Pruji tells this story many times of the Brahmin who came to Shiva desiring wealth for the marriage of his daughter. And Shiva sent him to Sanatan Goswami, who was doing bhajan nearby Madan Mohan. And he approached Sanatan Goswami, said, I was sent by Mahadev to approach you to get some wealth to help marry my daughter. He said, yes, I don't have anything. Are you sure you don't have anything? How would Mahadev lie? Because Shiva and Sanatan Goswami were very dear friends. They stayed together in Chakleshwar Mahadev in Govardhan. They would spend time together. So Shiva cannot be wrong. So Sanatana Goswami said, okay, I think I found a touchstone, which means whatever you touch to it turns to gold. And I found it and I didn't have any use for it, so I threw it out in that pile of like garbage some distance away. Like, you know, and there's some pile of like leftover stuff or anything that's not needed, like compost pile. Oh, I think I threw it over there. So the Brahmin went and took that and was very happy, rejoiced, and he began to run down the road in ecstasy, thinking, now I'm going to become the wealthiest man in the world. But as he got like half a kilometer down, he began to think, why did this person throw it away? Shiva said he had great wealth, so he must have something more valuable. And also he was thinking that if I keep this with me, as soon as anyone finds out about it, many dacoits will come to kill me and steal it from me. It goes same story of Shamantaka jewel with Satyajit. Because he was very attached to this, and you know, he was killed for this. So the Brahmin thought, okay, I better not keep this. So he went back to Sanatana Goswami, said, oh, here, take it back. You must have some wealth even more valuable than this. Please tell me what that wealth is. And this also will be like a noose around my neck, dragging me down. You know, it will destroy me. So Sanatana Goswami said, okay, if you want that supreme wealth, paramartha, then you have to throw out this material wealth. So then the Brahmin accepted. He threw that Chintamani in the Jamuna and approached Sanatana Goswami. There's another story that the real Vaishnavas who have this supreme wealth, paramartha, they're not interested in material things because they had a higher taste and they've seen the higher kind of wealth. So the story of the king who came to Sanatana Goswami, the Muslim king came, and he wanted to do some service to Braj because he was impressed by Sanatana Goswami's devotion. And Sanatana Goswami said, you can go and fix one stair of the ghat, bathing ghat in the Jamuna. And the king went there and saw that Sanatana Goswami gave him the transcendental vision to see the real spiritual ghat. And he saw that each stone was laid with the most valuable gemstones that comprised wealth more than he had in the entire India. One stair. So he thought, how can I, you know, at first he was offended thinking that he's asking me to repair one stair. But then he saw it that the precious diamonds, gems, emeralds, rubies that were there, sapphires, they were more valuable than everything he had in his treasury. So he came and surrendered to Sanatana Goswami. That's why the Banjaris, even in Braj, Chintamani Moy Radha Kunda Tata, Tahi Kunja Sata Sata, all the fruits of the trees are more valuable than gemstones. And even the dust On the banks of Radhakund, each particle of dust is Chintamani, touchstone, more valuable than any material thing. So if you're in that line of the Brijbasis, you realize that this spiritual wealth is so much superior to anything material. The material wealth we acquire, then as soon as we die, we can't take even a penny with us. It's the story of a king that Narad Rishi approached and said, I want to speak with the king. The king said, I don't have any time. The messenger kicked him out. Again and again he came back, and again he was refused. The king said, give him some wealth and tell him to go. But he didn't listen. So finally the sage said, I want to speak with the queen. And the queen was more soft-hearted. She said, I'll speak with him. Then what did the queen do? Narad was sitting with the queen. The queen said, okay, what do you want to tell? So he said, I have to tell you something very important, that your husband, the king, is going to die in a few days. And I have an important message to tell him that can help him. So she immediately ran to the king and told him, and now the king was concerned that hearing about himself that he's going to die, then immediately he was like, okay, I'll have a meeting. So they sat down face to face, and the king asked, so what do you want to tell me? I'm going to die. What should I do? He said, oh, you've done pious work in your life, so you'll go to heaven. But you've also done a little bit of impious, sinful activities, harming your citizens, taking wealth from them without serving them properly. In some cases, like generally when people collect donations from everyone, okay, maybe they use most of it for good things, but then they think, oh, I'll just keep 10% for myself. So because you did that, then there'll be many mosquitoes that will bite you in heaven. You know this story? You heard this story? So then he says, okay, but they've arranged a mosquito net for you. So you don't have to worry, there'll be a mosquito net, but they're not very good at doing these mosquito nets in heaven because they don't often have to deal with this situation of mosquitoes. So they've left by accident. There's like, when they were sewing it, there's one hole. Even if it's a hole very small like this, mosquito can get inside. So the mosquitoes will come inside and bite you. So I just want to tell you that you should take a needle and a thread with you when you die. And in this way you can protect yourself. And you can fix it when you're there. So the king was like scratching his head. Narad said, I came to tell you this, that when you die, be very careful to take a needle and a thread with you. So immediately he was thinking like, how am I supposed to take a needle and a thread with me? It's impossible. So then Narad began to teach him about like Paramartha, spiritual life, and real wealth. All this, now you are a king, but as soon as you die, you're never going to remember who I was, what was my name. That is temporary anart, that is temporary, that's part of the dust on the mirror of the heart, Chaitadarpana Marjan, we're trying to clean. I was this king, and I did these great activities, I was so wealthy, I was the emperor of the world, I was Napoleon. I was Caesar, I was the emperor in Egypt or something. But after you die, next life you may be a dog, next life you may be a pig, next life you may be a beggar. There's no guarantee. Samsara chakra means, the wheel of samsara means, sometimes you're going up, sometimes you're coming down. Sometimes you're a king, sometimes you're a beggar. Sometimes you're an ordinary person. So then Narad said, don't be attached to material position and try to realize your true self. Yes, you're going to die soon. The whole basis of the Bhagavatam is that there's two questions Parikshit Maharaj asked to Sukadeva Goswami. What should a person who knows he's going to die very soon, what should he do? And what is a person who knows that in time everything dies, everything is going to perish, so what should we do? These are the two questions that start the Bhagavatam. The whole Bhagavatam is set with Parikshit Maharaj, he's the emperor of the world, but he's cursed to die in 7 days, so he thinks, now what should I do? So Gurudev said, actually a person is very fortunate if they know when they're going to die. People think it's very sad, like, oh, we don't want to, criticize, and it's a very sad thing also, but like, oh, someone, maybe they have some kind of disease, and the doctor tells them you have a year, or 6 months. They would say, actually, that's a person who's actually very lucky, because now they realize, I only have a short amount of time, and if you are focused then, even in a short amount of time, you can get the perfection of life. But you're enjoying life, you're very wealthy, externally you have a very good birth, position, education, very beautiful, opulence, always enjoying. Then you're oblivious to the impending death and the duty of life beyond death. And then you become intoxicated by that and you tend to commit sinful activities and then you will fall down to a very low condition. So bringing it back to the story, Nala, Kuvera, Manigriv, they're the two sons of Kuvera, the treasurer of the gods. And because they didn't work hard to earn their wealth, they just had all the wealth of the treasurer of the gods. Kuvera is the treasurer of all the demigods. You can imagine how wealthy he is. So these two young boys, Purity describes, they would go and steal other men's daughters, wives, and enjoy with them. And how would he steal? Giving them lots of wealth and facility and they would enjoy with all of them. They became shameless, so they were bathing naked with them. Even when Narad Rishi came by in the forest, then they were bathing naked, walking around here and there, like completely shameless. So it said when you become very wealthy like this, the danger is if you don't use it in seva, in serving others, then it becomes like a weight of pride on you. You think this is mine. Purdy was talking about this last night. We don't think that this is God's, that God has given it to me to serve people. Instead, we think that this is mine, even if it's unearned wealth, So anyhow, these two boys, they were cursed by Narad, but actually his curse was a blessing. Narad is the god brother of Kuvera, the god brother. It's a long story. You want me to tell the whole story? Okay, so Narad is the god brother of Kuvera. They both are worshipping Sankarshan, Ram, and they're both god brothers. So Kuvera asked Narad, his dear friend, please help me. My two sons are they have the worst kind of character and they're committing so many bad activities, disturbing so many people. So please, I want you to help them change. So Narad, he went in this area that they were enjoying in the gardens of heaven. And they had collected many different beautiful damsels. They were all bathing naked and enjoying with each other. So all the girls became shy and covered themselves, but the boys became very angry. Oh Narad, you're disturbing our enjoyment. You must also want to enjoy like us. Immediately began to criticize and attack him. But sadhus are very merciful. It said, sadhavo dina vatsala. Sadhus don't reciprocate with you how you act with them necessarily. The demigods, if you worship them, they give you some result accordingly to how you acted, right? But the sadhus, they're dina vatsala, means even you attack them, even though you try to disturb them, they act in a way for your own self-benefit. So even though they were ready to attack Narad, externally it looked like he cursed them to become two trees, the Yamala Arjuna trees. But really he gave them the boon that you will become fixed, stan sthita, where? Right where Krishna is going to be born and appear and perform his pastimes. People say Narad just cursed them, then why didn't they go anywhere else? They could have become trees in the Amazon. They could have become trees in the Sequoia National Park. These were also present 5,000 years ago. They could have become trees anywhere in India, in any forest, Dandakaranya. But Narad said, okay, you have now become intoxicated with the pride of your wealth, your beauty, your high status. Kunti says, Janmaishwarya, we learned this verse in our Bhagavatam class. Janmaishwarya shruta shribir edamana madapuman naivar hatya vidatvam vaitvam akinchana gocharam. Krishna is approached by those who are akinchan, who have become destitute. We may have so much wealth, but internally if we have this mood that now I am completely surrendered to Krishna, I give up everything. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Arpiya tua pare nanda kishore. Whatever I have, whatever possessions, family, wealth, home, I offer all of this to you and now I am a kinchan at your lotus feet. Then I can approach Krishna. Some people say, why is Krishna's bhaktas, many times we see them, they are impoverished or they don't have such a great facility, Srivas Pandit, because they don't desire this. They feel like Sanatana Goswami. This is all at their fingertips. On one hand, Krishna says that the devotees will never be beggars, they'll never be poor. Lakshmi may beg, the goddess of fortune may beg, but my devotees will never have to beg. But the devotees do not want this. They prefer to be a kinchan, without anything. Like Vamana Goswami Maharaj would say, my bank is my pocket. Whatever I have that day, I spend in Krishna's service. Okay, sometimes Vaishnavas also may have a lot of wealth, but they're completely detached from it. Then they can do bhakti. Otherwise, if you're attached to your wealth, this is like an anchor and a noose that's around your neck and dragging you down to hell. So the two boys, they were given the curse that they became trees, but they became trees outside of Nanda's house, courtyard, and then when Krishna was playing, we know this pastime, Krishna was playing, after Krishna was tied by Mother Yashoda to the grinding mortar, then Krishna began pulling it, the Sakhas were pushing it, it got stuck in between the two trees. Twin Arjuna trees means they're connected at the base, maybe even underground a little bit, and then they spread out from there. So Krishna was pulling the grinding mortar, became caught in between, and then Krishna, he was feeling like these trees were impeding his play, so he pulled and he looked at them with some kind of mood of purifying. Sometimes anger is purifying. Krishna, Guru Vaishnavas, they show anger towards us, then it's actually cleaning our anarthas and purifying us. So when Krishna looked at them oh, why are you stopping me from playing? This little mood, and also at the same time he was thinking oh, you have so many anarthas, why are you staying here? You should get some nice spiritual form. Like when he killed Putana, he gave her a beautiful spiritual form. Any of the demons that he killed, they all got spiritual forms, or they got liberation. So the twin Arjuna trees at that time fell, and they became Jiva Goswami writes in Gopal Champu, they became Snigdha Kanta and Madhukanta, and they were always, every morning they had the role of like being the teachers. They were, every morning they were speaking Harikatha to the Brijbasis. One day Snigdha Kanta would speak, one day Madhukanta would speak, one day the other would hear, one day they would take turns like that. So in this way, Prabhuji mentions and Gurudev mentions that this pride of wealth, the way to get rid of it is to become sthana sthita. You have to try to become fixed in a proper place. This is a verse in the Bhagavatam that Brahma says that, oh, before I was very proud. I thought I am the creator, I am so wealthy, I'm so knowledgeable. And I was so proud that I even challenged God himself. I stole his cows, I stole his friends, I hid them away, I tested him. This was because of my pride of my high birth, my position. Now I see that that was like a noose around my neck. I completely give it up and I surrender to your lotus feet. I become a kinchan niskinchan. Then he realized, then he prayed with this verse, Stane stita shrutikatam tanuvan manobir, that I should become fixed at the lotus feet of the Brijbasis. Whoever is like the Braj Bhakta, become fixed at their lotus feet. And then by doing that, then all this pride, all these anarthas will wash away. But staying fixed at the lotus feet is not so easy. People want to run around here and there. It's externally, I have to stay fixed in one place. But if you're fixed in one place, then you can become purified. Like the Yamalarjuna trees. They were fixed in one place for thousands and thousands of years doing sadhana tapasya. People say, why do the yogis in India stand and do austerities in the forest for thousands of years? This is what it takes to achieve spiritual emancipation or spiritual self-realization. But for us, we want to be fixed with the Brijbasi Bhaktas. Whoever the Brijbasi Bhaktas are in this world, Braj Anuragi Bhaktas, stay fixed with them, then all our anarthas will be purified. Then we can go through anartha nivritti, then we can achieve our true self, true purpose, then Chaitya Darpana Marjanam is possible. Without becoming fixed like the Yamalarjuna trees, it's not going to be possible. One day one guru, one day another guru. Spiritual tourism is not going to help you grow in bhakti. Some people like to be like spiritual tourists. Okay, go here, go here, go here, go here. But unless you have like connection, like even Rupa Goswami says that Krishna smaram janam chasya prestan nija samahitam. That if you want to enter into Raganuga Bhakti, then Krishna smaram janam chasya. Follow this Shravanam Kirtanam Smaranam, but connected to one of Krishna's dear associates. Krishna Prestam. Someone who is very close and dear to Krishna, become attached to them like Stita Duli Sadrisam Vachintaya, like a particle of dust at their lotus feet. Then you can get the goal of your spiritual development. If you don't feel like I'm becoming a dust at the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, those who have this Braj Anurag, then you're never going to achieve that goal of your life. So that's what we learned from the Yamalarjunas. And it ties into Shikshastakam also. The 5th verse of Shikshastakam ends with Stita Duli Sadrisang. May I become like a particle of dust at your lotus feet. That's the 5th verse, Ainanda Tanuja. So this is something we learned from the Yamalarjunas.